Audio
All
recording.
right. My audio is now recording also. I just caught a glimpse of myself. I've got a bit of a 1990s boy band look.
Yeah, Nick.
Nick,
Hey,
Nick Carter.
Carter.
Ah, bless. All right.
Oh, you're so funny.
Hi, Dom.
Hi, Kate.
How are you this fine day?
I am in one of those annoyingly positive moods. Even though I
God.
look like shit, I'm wearing my wife beater. For those that tune into our YouTube channel, subtle reminder that we do have videos of all of our recordings.
We do. I am hungover, so I just look a treat. And I've had to do some legitimate vocal warm-ups this morning because I sounded like a phone sex operator about an hour ago. So
She's chewed tobacco, Winnie Blues every day of her life.
That's it. Good on you, Dal. All right. So, Dom, I'm really excited about today's episode.
Where the fuck are you taking us? That's all I can say.
We are going on a journey. Now, the topic today is weather. So it's a very general topic. There's lots of weather that I do love, but there's weather that I don't love. One I really don't like, one type of weather, which I'll get to. But I will take you on a wild ride. I usually like to draw you in to my stream of consciousness. I'm going to provide you.
Sorry, could you call it a hurricane or a
hurricane? Stop it. It's a hurricane. That's pretty good. I do like that. So yeah, look, we're on top of our excellent puns and jokes. I will also provide our listeners with unsolicited advice on how to survive in some of the scenarios that we'll talk about. Please don't follow any of my advice, or do, and then write in. Let us know how you go. So if you find yourself in any of the scenarios.
We are not legally responsible for the life or death of any of our listeners due to Kate's weekly survival tips. I do love that you are starting to fall into this pattern now, Kate, of giving advice on people how to survive all of these rather interesting scenarios.
Yeah, exactly. I just thought it's part and parcel. Why not educate? Provide advice, and just teach people about the most useless stuff that might frighten us. Yeah, it's perfect. I like it.
I agree. And I think this is a really good example of what people can expect in some of the future episodes, that we're going to touch upon specific topics more than once. Like, weather, it's such a broad thing for sure, or space, like you've previously done. There's so many things that we could talk about in each of these topics, but we try and zone in on like our story, or, a couple of elements or questions or parts of it.
Yep.
And then who knows, we might revisit them again in the future as we learn more too.
It's so true. And as we're sort of talking too, so Dominic and I went to a Thanksgiving dinner with our family last night. Happy Thanksgiving to anyone listening that celebrates that holiday. And we were, just chatting with our family, and everybody was just coming up, oh, this scares me. You should do an episode on this, or do an episode on this. So we were coming up with a lot of really good future episodes just by chatting. So we'll absolutely get into different stuff and revisit topics as well. But look, when we're talking about fears, so bringing us back to our weather, there are specific phobias, because I like to discover what phobias or terms are out there. There are specific phobias that are linked to more specific weather types. So there's the sort of all round phobias, but there's a lot that are just linked to specific weather types. I'm not going to list them all. One I will talk about in more detail later. But essentially, I'm going to be addressing some fears that I had as a child. Again, a lot of what I, think about. I also, I couldn't help myself, but I've linked a lot of my fact finding and the source of my fears to films that were mostly released in the 1990s, peak time for films.
The golden age.
The golden age. You can probably guess some, but I will ask you in a little bit, when we get into it. Because this is purely an educational podcast as well. I'll give you some tidbits thanks to some websites, National Geographic, and a couple of others as well. But let's get into our weather chat.
Take it away, weather lady.
The first frightening event that I want to talk about involves a hailstorm.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our first type of weather. Now, for those of you wanting to learn, hail is formed when drops of water freeze together in the upper regions of thunderstorm clouds. Mm-hmm. Then the droplets, they freeze into hailstones, and they just add layers and layers, so they start to get, different sizes. Eventually, the hail will fall to earth when it becomes too heavy to stay up in the clouds, or when the updraft stops or slows down. So a lot of the weather events that I'm going to discuss, I have no personal experience with, but this one I do. So in 2010, in Melbourne, Australia, where Dom and I live, we had one of the most intense hailstorms ever. So we had hailstones that were, over 10 centimeters in diameter. So that's roughly like a softball, like a little bit bigger, a bit bigger than a baseball. That's insane. Mother Nature, she was not playing around that day. She was angry.
She was pissed off.
Yeah, she was really mad.
What else happened in 2010 to piss her off?
Who knows? Do you remember that day?
Oh, I've got a story of that day, which I will happily add in if there's time.
Excellent. All right. Look, I looked it up, and the Age newspaper, so just to give people a bit of an idea, if you either don't remember or weren't here, the Age had bloodied festival goers, spooked racehorses, smashed windows, and torrential rain inside major buildings with some of the surreal scenes unfolding across Melbourne in one of the most intense storms in years. So that gives you a little bit of a sense. Now I'm going to, tell my story of that day. And then Dom, I will throw over to you because I'm curious to know where you were and what was going on. But on this particular day, I was in the gym at Deakin Uni. So for anyone familiar with the Burwood campus of Deakin, there's a couple of football ovals just across the street from where the gym is. Now, everyone that was in the gym, we had to go outside or evacuate because water just started pissing out of the ceiling. So that puts a dampener on your squat thrusts when you're getting absolutely drenched.
Okay, so do we need to do some translation for those that don't know? Pissing out of the ceiling doesn't mean piss was. That's Aussie slang for a freaking shit ton of water was gushing out of the roof ceiling.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Look, keep up. We'll do a translation app. Yeah.
Exactly.
So just outside of the gym at Deakin, there's a substantial concrete platform. It holds up the second level. So that's good. So we were safe under there. But the same couldn't be said for the two football teams that were training on the football ovals across the road. So whilst we were all standing there, 40 or 50, young men just come sprinting across the road. They were completely drenched. Some of them were bleeding. So obviously they had been hit by these ridiculously huge hailstones. And they just, they couldn't get out of the storm fast enough. There was even some people that were just standing over other people that couldn't get there quick enough. It was really crazy. And once they'd run over towards where we were, everyone that was in the gym just started grabbing their towels, and we had to grab a first aid kit. People were had huge cuts and bruises and welts on their backs. It was awful. And it was definitely, that largest hail that I had ever seen. These were you could pick them up a fistful of hail. It was crazy. And that was one of the most intense storms that I'd ever witnessed. But I can't imagine what it would have been like to be outside. Imagine you're just thinking it's going to be, some rain. So you're just hanging around outside, and then all of a sudden just being struck by these giant balls of ice, and you've just got no control over what was going on. And it just, left bruises and cuts. And
if you're exposed,
and
you get hit once, I'm sure people were concussed. Actually, I remember hearing stories of people concussed.
Yep.
You would start fearing for your life. You could be beaten to death by these rather fast-moving, dangerous, sharp projectiles.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's it. So it was just, hail is pretty frightening. And that was one experience where I actually, witnessed it myself. But what about you, Dom? Where were you that day? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So my little quick story is the fact that I had just purchased a brand new car, and I was
Oh.
living in Kensington at the time, and
Mhm.
I had parked my car just near Kensington Station. And to this day, we still have the car. The car is still in ownership of the Taranto family.
Yeah.
Every single panel of that car was dimpled so badly that they ended up having, the insurance company had to write the car off. It's all cosmetic damage, of course, so the car
Yeah.
works fine. But the sheer amount of force and damage done to every single front, back, side, every panel of that car was just so intense they would have had to replace the entire thing. So the insurance company had to write it off, and it was about 16 grand's worth of
Jesus.
damage. And this is not a fancy car at all.
Yeah.
But it was horrifying. It was really properly scary. Because, I think hail's not all that uncommon. We've all seen it, we've all experienced it, and it's kind of exciting. Or, if you live somewhere where it snows, but when all of a sudden you're seeing the windows in skyscrapers were being blown out.
Yeah.
Like people, it was borderline like from the movies. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's always one of those things, when it starts hailing, it's like when people drive past horses or cows and they're like, oh, horses. Every time it'll start hailing, you're like, oh, it's hailing. Oh, that's not just rain. That's thick rain. Oh, my God.
She's got some heft to her, that one.
She does. Oh, she's
on a side note, that car,
Yeah.
by the way, not only did it get battered in the giant hailstorms of 2010, it also got rammed by a tram and somehow survived. Diane Taranto is driving a couple of times. That car is still going.
Which one is that? Is that Lance?
That's Lance.
Oh, my God, Lance the Lancer. What a trooper. That's fantastic. Well, anyone that can survive Diane's driving, that's, hats off.
Oh, God, I'm going to pay for that.
Oh, yeah, same.
She's muttering under her breath right now. She's cooking up some comeback if she's not tripping over a door frame.
Double whammy. All right, so that is my singular experience of experiencing an extreme weather event. I want to switch to talking about events I've got no personal experience with, but equally make me want to shit my bricks at the thought of them happening. So this brings us to the 1990s disaster film educational portion of this podcast, starting with Twister. Now, for anyone that has not seen Twister, do me a favor, stop this podcast immediately. Go to your nearest Blockbuster or your Netflix or, wherever you rent your movies, because your life is really, truly not as good as it could be. So if you've not seen Twister, your life could be better. So everything will improve if you see Twister.
Guess what? Do yourself one, true. I am mad, but do yourself even one more favor.
Yep.
Go blow wave your blonde hair out. Put on a white wife beater like I currently am wearing, and you can feel your full Helen Hunt fantasy. And it'll change. Yeah, it will change your life. Jennifer Aniston's hair is probably the only other hairstyle that is as powerful at this time in human history as Helen Hunt's. So,
unreal. Just, it's incredible. So you must go and watch Twister. Please watch Twister.
I'm so excited right now. I think I'm going to watch it after we record this too.
I absolutely have it lined up, ready to go. I couldn't leave it alone. But anyhow, so Twister. When researching tornadoes, a lot of my research comes from watching that film. But looking at weather and what frightens me the most, the one constant is wind. Wind can absolutely get stuffed. Like it just makes everything worse. I know we probably need it, and it makes, coastlines and helps with stuff, but ultimately get stuffed, wind. You can just piss off. I'm just, not into it. That's the one constant.
We're officially wind haters at Shit and
We
Bricks.
We are.
Accept it. Don't try and change our minds. We are boycotting all types of wind.
We are. We truly are. So I mentioned a little bit earlier about phobias. Lylapsophobia is usually defined as a fear of tornadoes or hurricanes, but it more accurately describes a general fear of severe weather types. So we can talk about lylapsophobia. Causes of this fear usually stem from having personally experienced a devastating storm event, having lost a friend or a relative to a storm, or having learned this fear from others. One of the most popular weather movies ever made, the 1996 film Twister, centers around lylapsophobia. The film's main character, Dr. Joe Harding, Helen Hunt, love you, develops a professional interest and reckless fascination with tornadoes after losing her father to one as a little girl. So the next bit I need to chat about when we're talking about tornadoes is because I'm going to talk a little bit about F scales and EF scales. So I thought, why don't I give you a little rundown of an F scale and an EF scale? So
are you going to sing for us?
I wish. I'm not. But in the movie Twister, they do talk a lot about that. And that's where I learnt about it, really. Or even maybe watching it and then researching later. But you guys don't need to do that because I've done the research for you. Sit back, relax. Let's learn about the F scale. So tornadoes were originally rated on the Fujita scale.
What did you call me? Fujita.
So named for its inventor, University of Chicago meteorologist T. Theodore Fujita. The meteorologist created the scale in 1971 based on the wind speed and type of damage caused by a tornado. So to give you a brief rundown, it starts at an F0, so Fujita scale 0, wind speeds of about 60 to 120 kilometers an hour. Then, it'll tear branches, and we've experienced 100K winds before, sort of the opening part of the scale. Yeah. Then you go to an F1, not the race cars, but they do clock around 120 to 180 kilometers an hour. So that's when, some loose materials on roofs and buildings and things, they can be dislodged. They do instruct that mobile homes are highly vulnerable, so they can be knocked from their foundations, and it can affect your driving and things as well, so it can actually push your car off the road. This is an F1, so we've still got a few to go.
Yeah, and if you've ever met my father, Paul Taranto, when he gets a snoring, I reckon he probably hits an F1 every now and again.
Exactly. Then we go to an F2. So we've ripped up to 180 to 250 kilometers an hour. These are the winds. Yeah. So well-established trees uprooted, mobile homes decimated, roofs can be ripped off houses, train cars and trucks can be knocked over, and small objects will become dangerous missiles.
This is F2.
F2.
Okay, now I'm starting to get a little bit frightened because I always thought when we're getting into like the 200s, mid 200s, that we're at the top end. But F2 is not uncommon as far as I know. Anyway, you'll probably explain this. Sorry.
No,
F3.
that's okay. Yeah. No, look, it is. F2s and F3s are probably the most common in terms of tornadoes, but it depends on the region and where you are. Yeah. But yeah, we jump into an F3, 250 to 330 kilometers an hour. So forests destroyed, trees ripped up from the ground, entire trains derailed, knocked over, walls and roofs can be torn from houses. So F3. So we've got a couple to go. This is almost like I was watching Hot Ones on YouTube, and they sort of go up the chili scale. This is like the Scovilles are increasing in terms of wind. An F4. Now we're looking at 330 to 420 kilometers an hour. Houses, other small structures can be raised off their foundations entirely, and cars can be propelled through the air if they are picked up. So that's at an F4.
Not to say cows can't either.
Exactly. Yeah, please watch Twister again. You'll understand that reference. Then we get to the big mama, the F5. So we're at the Fujita scale 5. Winds 420 to 515 kilometers an hour. I can't really comprehend that strength of wind or that speed of wind. It blows my mind.
You're a fucking dag, I swear. Oh Lord.
So
Okay.
then we're looking at cars becoming projectiles, cows as well. They can be hurtled through the air, entire houses completely ripped off, foundations destroyed. Steel reinforced concrete structures can be seriously damaged. So a lot of the structures in, Tornado Alley and things like that are built in these areas are steel reinforced concrete structures. Houses have bunkers and everything like that to try and protect themselves as well. So that is the top end of the Fujita scale.
Honestly, do you reckon at some point they're going to have to make space with all the wild weather and the impacts of global warming and such? They're going to have to add like an F6, or they're going to have to increase some of the extreme levels of measurement of some of these things, because it seems like this is going to just get worse and worse, to be perfectly honest. Like, surely there's something stronger than an F5 on Jupiter or whatever. Jupiter's red spots must be, hey, there you go. Let's link your space and your weather.
Ooh, we could do a space weather episode. Just, spitballing.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm interrupted yet again, but my mind's blown.
Fine. That is so fine. So that's the Fujita scale. So in 2007, the Fujita scale, it was replaced by, I love the title, Enhanced Fujita Scale. So if you talk about the F scale or the EF scale, similar things, but just the way that they attract was slightly different. So rather than it just being about wind speeds and destruction, it's more about how they're formed and where they're formed and things like that as well. So we now have, if I talk about the F or the EF scales, which I will chat about, it's the same thing. Just cool. F5 bad, F0 also not ideal, but gives you that scale. So I learned more from Twister, really, than I did a lot of other research that I was doing. I learned in Twister that you can survive an F5 by strapping yourself to a pipe with a belt.
A leather belt.
A leather belt, allegedly. So sidebar, I did actually research this quite substantially to work out. So, I could help our listeners if ever they find themselves trapped in an F5. Would that work if you're in, a farm and there is, pipes and a belt? Great news, everyone. There is a slim chance that you could survive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the best info that I found was also from my favorite website of the day. It's called tornadotalk.com. And guess what? They talk about tornadoes on that website. So they went through the film Twister and were, either debunking or confirming some of the information in there. Pretty accurate, to be honest. Some of the stuff, not so much. But overall, it's reasonably accurate in terms of, tornado facts.
Probably a top tip for Kate is make sure you keep all of your aluminium, and we do not say aluminum. I'm just putting that out there. It's not a real word.
It's not.
Aluminium cans, because they may come in handy.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So on tornadotalk.com, they explain that Bill and Joe, the characters from the film, they strap themselves to pipes that go down at least 30 feet, according to Bill's line. The chances of surviving a direct impact of an F or EF5 rated tornado with winds greater than 350 kilometers an hour is extremely low. If the wind doesn't kill you, any flying debris that impacts you, it will, because the velocity is cubed. So if, 2x4 pieces of wood or metal or a car is traveling at 320 kilometers an hour coming straight at you, that's tremendous force. That's pretty high. So they do follow up to say the fatality rate for an F or an EF5 tornado has been statistically high. So I can't promise you anything, but if you do find yourself in that situation with Bill Paxton or Helen Hunt, then, you can use that advice and strap yourself to a pipe with a leather belt.
Amazing.
See what happens.
Give it a crack.
Give it a go.
Give it a go.
Worst? The other thing that I learned, which was, from the film Twister, but one of the characters, they go underneath a bridge to try to escape the tornado. Don't do that. I learned not to do that because the wind and an enclosed space like that, it just intensifies the conditions. So it's more dangerous. The updrafts and then the swirling winds as well. It's no good, no bueno. So don't go under a bridge. Right. Find a barn with some pipes and a leather belt. You got a slim chance. Under a bridge, no dice. No dice. But whilst having a look too, I thought, this is all from fictional stuff. What about some, examples of real life survival stories? So I found one that I thought was pretty interesting. So Sharon Richardson, Shazza. Shaz. She's from Jefferson County in Alabama. So back in, it was 2006, I want to say. I didn't write it down. Please write in and tell me what year it was. She heard at work that a tornado was heading in the direction of her neighborhood. So she called her kids at home and she said, get into the basement, please. I'm on my way, like I've left work right now. As she was driving home, however, the storm caught her a few blocks before she actually made it home. So in her words, I had to pull off the road, get out of my car and lie in a trench on the side of the road. I heard the wind, felt the rain and had trees breaking all around me. If you ever want to feel your life about to slip away, lie in a ditch with an F5 tornado blowing over your head. Ugh. So after the roaring stopped, she looked up and she saw all of the houses in that street were completely decimated. And there was houses that had been literally blown down the street, like just picked up and just rolled down the street, a whole house. And she was lying in a trench with this all happening around her. Unbelievable. So she got home. Her house was pretty much totaled, but she found her kids in the basement with her 11-year-old son, Evan. He lay over the top of both of his sisters to protect them. He suffered a couple of injuries from fallen cinder blocks. And, that they sort of fell on his back, but then he went to hospital, fully recovered, completely fine.
Oh, Nellie Bly and now Evan should be given our first ever Shit and Bricks awards. I mean, Nellie, she can't accept it, but, we can drop it off. But Evan, good on you. I can't imagine how scary these things must be for kids. And it's almost like a bomb's going off, but instead of a bomb and it just being over and done with, it's like a bomb that goes on for minutes and minutes and minutes. The sound and the violence of it. Tell me, that would be so traumatic, especially to children.
Oh, without a doubt. Oh, you can't, and just not. I think one of the biggest things in looking at this, it's the unknown. It's that having no control. That's the one thing, you don't have any control over the weather. You don't have any control over where the tornado's path is going to be. They can track as best they can, and they've got some really impressive science that can back them up and try to help out. But ultimately, you're just at the hands of fate. You just, and that's where that fear comes from. Because people are helpless, you just feel completely helpless. What can you do? But Evan, for sure, he gets our Shit and Bricks award for this episode, our survival award. In my research, I also found another website, which please do yourself a favor and just go and look at it, because it's like it's just straight from 1997. Like, it hasn't changed, I don't think. The design of it, the colors, the font, it's amazing. So it's called survivalring.org, and they do
Okay.
So there's a lot of information there about surviving different events and stuff. But their motto, which is on their website, is study. Oh God, I can't even get through
You can't even say
it. Study yesterday, prepare today, live tomorrow. Which I love. But
someone has to put that on a t-shirt.
Absolutely. And I love that. That's like the the survivalists, live, laugh, love.
Yeah, it is.
Study yesterday, prepare today, live tomorrow. I have to get that made up. Oh my goodness. So thank you to survivalring.org. It is actually a very interesting website, although I'm ripping shit into it. It was actually a really interesting read. So that is our tornado chat, our tornadotalk.com. There's so much more I could go into, but I had to split up the episode a little bit. So the next weather phenomena, I want phenomena.
Yeah. I'll take both.
Okay, but not aluminum. You will not take aluminum.
No, I can't. I'm getting angry just at the mention of it. It's so frustrating.
Is it spelt the same way?
No.
Oh.
They just made up a new spelling.
They can't do that.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Well,
they
they
do.
do. It's the same as advertisement.
Oh,
It's
give me
not
a
an
break.
advertisement. It's an advertisement.
And also, it's Colin. It's not colon. Like,
true.
no one's named Colin.
Mm.
I mean, maybe some people are. Shout out to all the Collins out there. But
shout out to your Colin. This is Shitting Brick Podcast.
Oh, God, we shouldn't be allowed out.
Yeah.
All right. So, yes, phenomenon. I'm going with that. Our next weather phenomenon. Why did I put that word in here? It has a combination of things that scare me shitless, all from one event. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would now like to welcome you to the volcano portion of our podcast.
Oh,
welcome.
I need to pee. I'm so excited now. I wanted to be a volcanologist when I was a kid, Kate.
Amazing. Okay, so Dom, when I say volcano, and then we think of 1990s disaster films, what pops into your head?
Okay, you're either in Volcano team or Dante's Peak team.
There you go.
If you have no taste, you can go Volcano and it's fine. That's cool. I won't read you for it. But Dante's Peak is the epitome of cinema. It should have gotten an Academy Award.
Agreed.
It was on the other night. I think it's now out on Netflix. Go watch it.
It's what I want to watch immediately after this. I can't. I'm so, oh, God.
James Bond and Sarah Connor.
So for me, right, Dante's Peak, opening scene, we first meet Pierce Brosnan's character, Harry Dalton. He is just pounding out push-ups. Like, he is sweaty. He's breathing heavily. Like, I was powerless. Like, what else am I supposed to do but fall in love with the man if that's how we're introduced to you in this film? Like, stop it. Absolutely stop it, Pierce. You just, what a fox.
I mean, his form was pretty terrible, but, you know, whatever.
It was, but we're not worried about his form. I don't give a shit. I truly don't give a shit. Yes, so that's spot on, Dom. We will have a bit of a chat about Volcano and Dante's Peak.
Let's do it.
But education time. I went to another website that is the American Museum of Natural History's website, but they do have a section for children to learn about weather and things, which is often
a great place to start.
I usually go, what's the most, just in layman's terms, what are we talking about here? So when it comes to the American Museum of Natural History, this is their opening line on their volcanoes. Some mountains are made of solid rock, like the Rocky Mountains or the Swiss Alps, but some mountains are actually volcanoes. So we wouldn't call them a mountain at all. They're just a volcano. It's all right. So volcanoes are their vents or openings for the Earth's crust. They release ash, gas, and steam, and hot liquid called lava. When the lava cools, it hardens, and that forms the cone shape of the volcano. Most of the volcanoes are found around the edges of tectonic plates. Excuse me. Both on land and in the oceans. So on land, volcanoes form when one tectonic plate moves underneath the other one. Usually a thin or heavy oceanic plate subducts or moves underneath the other thicker plate. And then when that happens, the ocean plate, it sinks down, and then there's water trapped in the rocks. And then that water that's trapped there, it sort of gets squeezed out from that pressure. So that's generating, heat and stuff from the Earth's crust. Causes some of the rocks to melt. The melted rock or magma is lighter than the surrounding rock, and that rises up. The magma collects in the chambers. Then you got a volcano. So there you go.
Big old lava pimple.
Big old pimple. Also, what I learned on this website is there's a place called the Ring of Fire. It's like,
The Ring of Fire.
which I think I want to do just a whole episode on the Ring of Fire, but that is a large circle of explosive volcanoes around the Pacific Ocean. The circle is formed by the subduction of the Pacific plate and some smaller plates around that. So there's like, yeah, really neat. I'll pop it on our socials, but there's a really neat picture with the where they are, which is cool. So the Ring of Fire. Now back to Dante. What I discovered is that Dante's Peak is reasonably accurate. They were pretty happy with that. They did a lot of work with scientists, legitimate scientists, to make sure that what they were, putting in the film was reasonably accurate. The only thing that scientists had a problem with was the timing around some of the events. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it takes a bit longer, or sometimes it's a little bit faster, but they adjusted that naturally for Hollywood. But from that film, Dom, Dante's Peak, what's a memorable moment? What frightened you? Because I've got two. I've got two things that frightened me the most, but what can you think of?
I think, as this is a good little segue into next week's episode, which I won't say too much about now, I'll just allude to it. I think the boat lake scene with probably one of the most infuriating characters of all time, and to be perfectly honest, I would have just shoved her off the boat sooner. I would have used her as a paddle. Yeah, but whatever, that's my own personal trauma right there. That seems pretty horrifying.
Correct.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, look, so those were my two. So there was two. There were dead bodies in the lake, so in the hot springs, and Grandma's legs, which is the scene that you're talking about. So so what happens? And it shouldn't. Why am I laughing? We shouldn't be laughing.
I'm laughing because anybody that listens to this episode is going to be like, we're going to have to put a warning when we release this. Go watch these movies beforehand, because we're not it's not about the movies. These are just really good examples and representations of where I think our fears came from.
Correct.
And you will enjoy this episode even more. You should just listen to it while you're watching the movies, actually.
Perfect. Yeah, it's almost like a director's cut. We're doing the commentary. Yeah. Okay, so for those that haven't seen Dante's Peak, I'll give you a bit of an idea of what the hell we're talking about. So Grandma, they're in a little boat. And they're trying to get across the lake, but the volcanic gases and stuff underneath the lake start bubbling up, and they turn the water acidic, so highly acidic. So the boat starts to fall apart. The ore gets eaten, so they've got no real way to get to shore until Grandma gets off and hops in the water and pushes the boat, and all the while, her legs are melting from the acid water. And then when she gets to the bank, she passes away from shock because she has no legs. They've been melted away. So again, I'm not laughing at the fact that she anyway, frightened me to no end. That I'm like, could that actually happen? Like, that's it doesn't seem realistic. This seems very Hollywood. Okay, so Grandma's death by acid is a highlight of the 1997 camp classic Dante's Peak. The disaster epic chronicles the race to save a small town from deadly volcanic eruption. In the movie, volcanic gases quickly turn a placid lake into an acidic death trap as a family escapes burning hot lava by boat, aided by volcanologists played by Pierce Brosnan. Stop it. Grandma, oh God. Grandma sacrifices herself and jumps in the lake to push their dissolving aluminium boat, aluminium, the last few feet to safety. For a film that gets some eruption science terrifyingly right, the lake's radical transformation has always been a sticking point. Volcanic gases belching from the lake bottom can't acidify an entire lake in a matter of hours. However, extremely acidic fluids could dissolve Grandma's legs and kill her from shock, as well as eat holes in the boat. So it can happen, but it doesn't happen as quickly as depicted in the film.
Okay.
There is a real life example of this. And guess where it's not of someone walking in the water and losing their legs. I mean, they could.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say one little thing here. It wouldn't have happened if she just hadn't been such a stubborn.
I completely agree. Because
anyway,
it's been a while since I saw it, but she wouldn't leave the house, would she?
Yeah, that was the problem. Leave the house. Oh, there's a volcano exploding on your doorstep. There's lava rolling down towards your house. I'm not leaving. We'll be fine. Everything's going to be good. I've lived here for
Get in
100
the lake.
years. Yeah, just shut up.
Yeah, good on you. And as if, like, you've got Pierce Brosnan standing on your doorstep, just gagging to get you out of the house, as if you wouldn't just run and leap into his
Do
arms.
what you're told. Yeah.
Oh, good God.
So where did this happen in real life, Kate?
Russia. We
Oh my
love
God.
Russia.
Love Russia.
So in
Was it in
1996,
Volensky Novgorod area in Moscow.
Moscow. No, so in 96, I'm going to mess them up. Apologies to anybody who we offend by fucking up our bloody pronunciations again. But in 96, volcanic blasts. Oh God, I'm so hungover. At Karimsky Lake in Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. Yep, we're going for it. They created a toxic chemical soup in the formerly pristine lake. According to a study published on October 1st in Geophysical Research Letters, the eruption decimated the lake's ecosystem, killing off thousands of fish and trees. I don't know that it's still acidic. I don't know, I should probably look that up, whether or not it would, vanish over a period of time or, regen, or if it's just now going to be acidic forever. I'll look that up and answer my own question next time. But there you go. So that, out of the scary scenes from Dante's Peak, that's legit. That can happen. It absolutely can create acidic lakes that will eat your aluminium boat, and it'll eat grandma's legs, and her house will still get knocked down. So just get on the fucking boat, grandma. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Exactly. 5 minutes earlier, you would have been fallen.
So those were the ones that I wanted to cover. That wraps up my weather part 1. But as I was going through that, I did have to cut some stuff out. So I had, other, terrifying weather events that people experience, but I honestly don't believe we would have had enough time to touch base on them with enough, gravitas that they deserve. So I think I'm going to have to do a weather part 2. So this was potentially a weather part 1 and a weather part 2, where I wanted to have a look at, bushfires. Such an extreme, particularly here in Australia, but certainly other parts of the world as well. I also would like to look at and talk about tsunamis. And hurricanes. I did talk about tornadoes, but didn't get to speak about hurricanes. And I didn't even get to talk about the perfect storm, like George Clooney at his most rugged, but the phenomena around that phenomenon. Why did I say that word? I just keep it out. Around the circumstances for a perfect storm and what that actually looks like, and all of that as well. So that's going to leave us at weather part 1. What did you think?
I think this is a fantastic chance for us to play around with our perfected format of shitting bricks and introduce our listeners to the idea of, extended topics and themes. And I think something that we definitely want to make sure we do when we do these episodes is that we don't rush through the really interesting facts and details of some of these stories. And we love to include all of our pop culture stuff and have a good giggle in the meantime. So I love the idea that there's still a shit ton of stuff you haven't talked about just yet. So I vote 1 for doing a part 2, not next week, the week after.
Perfect.
So people can do their homework.
Yes, please do.
Watch their movies.
So I think the perfect storm, you need to watch that before you listen to the next one, because that will help. I'll explain in a bit of detail. I'll give you a rough rundown of what happens, but it does help if you do see all of the films that make up, that really just cemented the fears that I have today as to what...
Something that didn't come out when we were children, but I think if it had it definitely would have impacted us is, perfect storm is great for hurricanes. I think watching The Impossible for tsunamis with Naomi Watts.
Oh, I have not seen that.
And I want to say Ewan McGregor, maybe. I don't know. I would highly recommend watching that, Kate. It is a bit confronting, but as far as I'm aware, really, really accurate, and it's all based on a true story. But Kate, you did such a great job. That was so much fun. It's difficult to weave all that stuff together, and it's not your traditional kind of scary horror thing, but these are like the real fears that come from like non-Hollywoodized things that are based off of real factors. That scares the shit out of me. So
Yeah, that's it. And again, it's just down to that hopelessness. You can't do anything, you know, in a storm, in a tornado, in a tsunami, hurricane. You just survive as whatever you can try to do to survive. But I really do believe that's where that fear stems from, is that helplessness, and you can't control it. So I didn't even get to touch much on the film Volcano, but we don't need to. As you explained, Dom, if you are not fussed about facts or decent cinema, Volcano's for you. If you want to learn a little bit more and watch grandma's legs melt off, Dante's Peak's the one for you. But yeah, look, there's so many other topics and things that we could add in. But that's the start. That's the start of our weather stories and the end of this podcast.
Well done, Kate. I'm so excited for the next phase. And next week, I'm going to be extending that topic, or not extending, but I think we've been hinting at this for quite a while, but I'm going to touch upon probably one of the biggest fears that you and I share together, and that is on water, deep water, or oceans.
Perfect.
So do tune in for that one. I just finished writing my research story and article today, and it's
amazing.
Ooh, creepy.
Excellent. I cannot wait. That will be so good. And if you're listening and there's a topic that you think that we should talk about, please let us know. You can find us on Shit and Bricks podcast on Instagram. That's probably the best place to contact us at the moment. But please send in, let us know if there's something you would like us to talk about. We do have a few topics in the backs of our minds, but we're always open for new things, and we want to hear what scares you guys.
Yes, and rate and review us as usual. But, yeah, awesome. Well done, Kate.
Yay! Thanks, Dom. I will see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Go watch movies now. Boo. Oh my goodness, that was a laugh riot.
Oh.
You did so well, Kate. Why is it still recording?
I don't know.
Oh well, people can watch that.
Cool.
That
was funny. I laughed.